Hey everyone, welcome back to Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This is Lesson 25, covering page 30 in our book, the G position. So everything you've learned up to this point has been in the C position. So the C position was right here, the right hand. You had your thumb on middle C, 2 on D, 3 on E, 4 on F, and 5 on G. Your left hand was 1 octave lower, but your pinky finger was on C. Your fifth finger, 4 on D, 3 on E, 2 on F, thumb on G. So for the G position, let's start with the right hand. So you see where my right hand is right now on the C position. Remember where your fifth finger was on G? You're going to take your thumb and you're going to put it on that G. Now when you do that, everything shifts over. Your second finger is now on A. And so remember, the musical alphabet is only A through G. So once you get to G, you start all over, meaning the next white key over is A. From A, just follow your alphabet. B, third finger, C, fourth finger, and D, your fifth finger. So the G position for the right hand is G, A, B, C, D. So at the top of page 30, you see the diagram up there. The keyboard diagram shows the right hand RH, G, A, B, C, D. Now I want you to take a moment and look at the staff right below it for the treble clef. So this is something you're going to want to memorize, the location of these notes on the treble clef staff. The G, right here again, is the second line from the bottom. So anytime you see a note on the second line from the bottom in the treble clef, it's always this G. Whether it's played with the thumb or any other finger in the future, that's always G. The space right above it, you could also say the second space from the bottom, treble clef, is A. Your middle line, the third line up, but it is the middle line, is B. The space right above it, you could say second space from the top, is C. And then the second line from the top, right above C, is D. So you're going to want to get a habit of memorizing the location of those notes and get familiar with the intervals, meaning G to A, that's a second, G to B, that's a third. And I'm kind of teasing what's going to happen here at the bottom of this page. So let's look at the left hand first before we do that. So the left hand, the C position, as review, you were down here. Where your thumb was on G, your fifth finger will now be on that G. That puts your fourth finger on A, 3 on B, 2 on C, and the thumb on D. So G, A, B, C, D. So you can look at the diagram up there, LH, right above the keyboard. There's your location of G, A, B, C, and D. Right below it, the bass clef on the staff shows us the location of the notes. So notice that G is the top space in the bass clef, specifically this G. The top line is A. The space right above the staff is B. There's middle C. It has the little line through it. That's called a ledger line. So that's middle C. And D is right above that little ledger line. That's considered to be a space note. So just like the right hand, you're going to want to memorize these notes also in the left hand, more specifically on the treble clef staff and the bass clef staff. So when we put the hands together, this was our C position right here. There's our layout. When you approach the piano for the G position, if you get stuck at this point, go back to your G position and say, let me find the C position. Let me find the G's in both hands. Now take your thumb in the right hand, fifth finger in the left hand, and move them up to those G's. And remember to keep those other 4 fingers in each hand on the next 4 keys. Of course, you can also look at the diagram and you'll be just fine as well. So here's our G position in both hands. Now in the middle of the page, it says play and say the note names. Be sure to do this several times. We're going to start with the bass clef. So remember, your 5th finger is on G now. And they're kind enough to give us the names of the notes as we play. G, A, B, C, D, C, B, A, G. So you're going to want to play that several times. Notice you're in 4/4 time. So you do want to observe all the quarter notes and the whole note, which is 4 beats on that last measure. When you get comfortable playing those 5 notes in your left hand, we'll do the same thing in the right hand. And there it is. So practice those a few times before going down to intervals in the G position. Starting with the right hand in the treble clef. We've got G as our starting note, again with our thumb. Going to the very next key up, which is A, our 2nd finger. Notice that's a 2nd. From one white key to the next, that's always a 2nd. Now on beat 3, you're going back to a G. Notice they don't tell us that anymore. They're already starting to take away the letter names. So this is why it's good to really start memorizing where these notes are located on the staff. From this G on beat 3, we're going to go up to a B. And notice that's a skip. Or it's also 3 keys over. 1, 2, 3. So G to B is the 3rd. Our next measure, we're back on G on beat 1, and we're going to C, which is a 4th. 1, 2, 3, 4. On beat 3, you're back to G once again. And then finally up to D, which is a 5th. So these 2 measures take you through 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, just in the right hand. So before we do the left hand, let's play that right hand. And notice there are 4 beats per measure, all quarter notes, so we want to do it nice and steady. Here we go. Okay. Once you've done that a few times and you feel comfortable, go on and look at the left hand. So remember the left hand G position, make sure your 5th finger is on G. And that puts your thumb on D, which is our starting note here in measure 3. So we're going to go backwards. You start with D, go down to C, that's going down a 2nd. On beat 3, we're back to D. And then beat 4, we're down to B, which is a 3rd. Last measure, back to D. Down to A, which is a 4th. And then finally D to G, which is a 5th. So let's play those 2 measures. Okay, once the left hand's good, we'll put the hands together. So even though they play one hand at a time, right hand first, have your left hand ready to go. And especially be aware that it's your thumbs ready to go. So that when you've completed measure 2, there's no gap, there's no pause, you're ready to go right on beat 1 of measure 3. So here we go, both hands. And then of course it will repeat, play it again. The only other thing I noticed was the dynamic. It's mezzo forte, which is about average volume, so you don't have to really try to give any effort to play it louder or any effort to play it softer. Usually when you sit down and play, that's mezzo forte. What I played was probably about a pretty decent mezzo forte. Before we go down to harmonic intervals, I encourage you to play that a few times through. Try to play it faster. But again, evenness, always accuracy and evenness before anything else. So down at the bottom, harmonic intervals. So as a review, what you just played was melodic intervals, one note at a time. So think of a melody. Think of someone singing a melody. Generally speaking, most people can only sing one note at a time. So melody, melodic, one note at a time. Harmonic, harmony, two or more notes at one time. You're just going to be playing two notes here at once. So in the right hand, the G and the A, the second that you played melodically earlier, you're going to play them together for 2 beats, a half note. 1, 2. And then beats 3 and 4 is G and B, the third. 3, 4. Okay? Your next measure, harmonic fourth, which is G and C played together for 2 beats. And then finally G and D, your fifth, for 2 more beats. So let's do all that together. Here we go. Okay, you didn't hear me count aloud, I counted in my head, but hopefully you're at the point now where this counting is starting to become second nature to you. We're still dealing with pretty simple rhythms, so quarter notes, half notes, and whole notes, and occasionally a dotted half note. So sometimes I'll count out loud, but I'll try not to count out loud as often, because again, encourage you to not have to rely on that quite so much anymore. Now at the third measure, left hand, the C and the D, I'm going to play them together. That's your second. And then the B and the D, that's your third. Next measure, A and D, is your fourth. And the last measure, G and D, that's your fifth. So let's put the left hand together. There it is. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do both hands. Just like the previous exercise, have your left hand ready to go so that there's no gaps between the second and third measure with the timing. So from the beginning, and I'll give a little count off, but I won't count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then it will repeat, and that is also mezzo forte, so you don't have to worry about it being too loud or too soft. So practice that one a couple times. What you're gonna wanna pay attention to, the goal with these is that just like the chords and any other harmonies you've been playing in this book, evenness. Both notes sound as one. You want that to be very clear, very even. So again, if you have any of this, make sure you practice to balance out your fingers. Put a little more weight, or I should say a little less weight on the finger that played first, and work on that balance. You want that sound right there. Okay, so once you're good with playing, getting familiar with the G position, getting familiar with those notes, learning and memorizing the notes on the treble and bass staff, playing the intervals melodically and harmonically, you'll be ready to move on to the next lesson. See you there.